Please listen to the story, A Bad Feeling. It was on July of 1987. I lived in the Pacific Northwest. It was during the summer. So it's really hot. It was July. It's really humid where I lived at the time. And it was about 12. I was on summer break alone. So I was alone in the house. They knew it was going to be really hot, so I wanted to make sure. All the doors and windows were closed because we didn't have air conditioning. My grandpa, who was in the hospital in California at that time, but they said he was pretty stable. My Nana, who's his wife, my grandmother, she was at home. She wasn't going to visit in the hospital that day. My uncle was over taking care of her. It was in the morning too, but it was already starting to get warm out. I started doing my chores, the dishes, when then I started vacuuming. And then I felt this really sharp tap, like someone poking on my back. I felt it a few times, and I was home alone in the house. I don't have any siblings. I turned around, and there was no one there. There was no one else in the house. The living room got really cold. All of a sudden, I had a really bad feeling. So I turned off the vacuum, and then I went. I just went outside for a little bit to warm up, and I did not vacuum the rest of the day. The run at same time in California is around 10:30. My Nana got a really bad feeling, and she went straight back to the hospital. She told me that when she got there. She took my grandfather's hands, and he opened his eyes. And then he passed away. It happened at the same time that I got tapped on the shoulder, because I remember them telling me it was around 11. I looked at the clock at our house, and it was 11 too. My mom got home, and she said, "I have to tell you something." And she was pretty sad, but I already knew. I don't know how, but I just knew what she was going to tell me. I didn't vacuum for a long time after that. I'm in my 40s now, and even when I'm vacuuming in my house by myself, I leave a door open even if it's snowing here. I'm so still terrified. Like 30 years later that this is going to happen again. My Nana said that she felt for the next year or so that, and my grandfather would send her messages, but no one in my family believed her, because I just thought, she's just the grieving widow and making stuff up. But then in this time, it's a couple years later in like 1989, my Nana was going to go visit my great aunt, who was in San Francisco. She was getting in the car, and she said, my grandpa spoke to her and told her not to go. She got out of the car and she called my great aunt. And they said, they calculated that the time it would have happened, she would have been on the bridge. And the time it collapsed, I don't know if you ever knew that, about the Bay Bridge collapsing. It was just toppled down onto another layer of the bridge, and hundreds of people died. It's really tragic. As with most of our calls go, I asked Tara if she had any more experiences, and she thought of one more. Here it is. My friend's friends got in 7th grade. It was summer. Got like a Ouija board, which my mom always told me, do not mess with those. Do not bring it in my house. I wasn't going to bring it in the house. But I went over to a friend of a friend's house. There's this girl, and she was just a little off. There was just something weird about her. But my best friend was with me, and it was daytime. I figured it would be okay. So we went over to her house, and we started playing with it. She started asking it questions. What's your name? Are you from here? Are you a bad spirit? And it said yes. So I was done at that point. I was like, okay, we should stop fighting like this. But she wanted to keep going, which was a little unnerving. So then she just kept asking it questions. Then my other friend was like, okay, we just need to stop this now, because we're inviting something bad into the house. We stopped, and we said goodbye. And then all the magnets on her fridge flew off the fridge to the other side of the house. I've never seen anything like. It was terrifying, and the house got really cold. We got up and pretty much ran out of the house, and I never played with her again. I think she disappeared a couple years later. She just stopped coming to school, but yeah, just a really bad vibe for her. Don't leave just yet, since today's stories are short. I am publishing 3 in total. Have you listened to them yet? They're up and available now as separate episodes. Also remember, you can share your own story with me over on True, scarystory.com, for your chance to have it featured. On an upcoming episode to listen ad-free, try out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. Completely free for 14 days, and then $4.99 a month, and you can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story Ghosts of the Beach House: A Family's Encounter. Growing up, I had a lot of paranormal experiences. They were super subtle sensitivity to energies, noticing things in the home, hearing things when I was growing up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, if you're unfamiliar with the place. There was a lot of battles that happened. In Fredericksburg, Virginia, there's a lot of paranormal activity. They do a lot of Civil War, Revolutionary War reenactment. My grandfather was a home inspector. He would take me on a lot of his home inspections, and he would tell me scary stories about the property. We would hear footsteps, and one time he was in a foyer of an old colonial home. A pot flew across. A lot of the times his equipment was moved. One time I was with him, we came back inside the house. I looked down on the floor. The door was open. There was 2 muddy handprints, and 1 muddy footprint for about 6 or 7 steps, as if somebody was crawling, because they didn't have a leg anymore. All of this was fun and games for me, until I had the experience I'm about to tell you about. It happened a couple of years ago, in a different location, Topsail Island, North Carolina. Topsail Island, it was a massive hub for pirates. People think that they can still see Blackbeard's ship on the horizon. People also think that it might be the last resting place of Blackbeard's treasures. Topsail Island has a significant amount of energy. I had none of this information. When my family booked a vacation in Topsail, they were renting the beach house. When my family booked this vacation, I did travel all the way from Pennsylvania. Down to Topsail, I was already pretty tired. The drive was a couple of hours. For 6, I think, my boyfriend at the time. He picked me up, drove me all the way down. I slept a little bit in the car, but I was still really, really groggy. When I arrived at the beach house, it was not scary at all. It was a white house on stilts. The area surrounding was very swampy, but nothing that alerted me to anything. It was about 2-ish o'clock in the morning. I had just woken up. I was super groggy. I wasn't aware of what was going on. I'm locked on the door. My grandfather. He opened up the door. They both were whispering. They were tired. No one else was in the house. We said our greetings. It was cordial. Come in, okay? Thank you. Let's go to bed. My grandparents requested that my boyfriend and I sleep in separate rooms. They pointed me to the back room where I would sleep. It was through the kitchen. His room was closer to the front entrance and had a loft bedroom upstairs. I remember going into that room and feeling the heaviest weight I have ever felt in my entire life. This should have sent off some sort of ringer in my head, but it didn't. I was so tired. It was this really dense, thick smog kind of feeling. The feeling that hits you in the center of your chest, on your back, on your shoulders. I completely ignored it. and I had no other thoughts in my mind. Just unpack your stuff and get to bed. And I was unpacking these. These thoughts were not my own. I felt the energy of my past relatives. My great-grandmother was there. My great-grandfather was there. My great-aunt, they were there to protect me, to take care of me, and I just ignored it. I picked the bed, and that was closest to the back patio. I fell asleep. Enough time had passed. We are creeping into the 3 o'clock hour. We are creeping into the witching hour. I don't even know how long I was asleep. I was woken up by a pressing into the bed. I was not shook. I was not nudged. Nothing fell. I was pressed. Like somebody had put their hands on either side of my chest and pressed me into the bed. It was constant. It was rhythmic and very heavy. I could feel the sides of the pillow curl around my head. My head was being pressed into the bed. Of the pillow was touching the sides of my face. I've had sleep paralysis before. This is not sleep paralysis. I was hit with that overwhelming feeling. My relatives are there. It was a chatter. It was very noisy in my head. I remember being unable to move. I opened my eyes. It was an operation. 6 inches from my face, it was the blackest black, but also had outlines I could tell was a woman. Her eyes were sunken in. They were pitch black. Her hair was floating. It was gray. It was coming out at all ends like Medusa, like she was in water. Her mouth was open like a snarl, latching onto somebody wide open. Her teeth were all sharp. She had white markings on her face, 2 that were going vertical, 1 on her forehead to her hairline, 1 down her chin, and 2 horizontal on the sides of her cheeks, as if somebody had put their fingers in paint and smeared them across their cheeks. This encounter seemed to go on forever. It felt like time had stopped. I was absolutely paralyzed. I remember sitting there in complete and utter fear, staring at this figure. I remember feeling like my breath was taken out of my chest. She was pulling it from me. I remember trying to scream and not being able to. I knew that. My own essence was starting to get compromised. All of a sudden, at once, I remembered that what you do in these moments is you remind the entity that you are the one that's alive. I shut my eyes and I started screaming. I'm alive, you are not. I'm here, you're not wanted here. All the while, I felt like my family was there. They were fighting this with me. It was completely chaotic and not of my own imagination. Suddenly, she was gone. The chatter stopped. The pressing stopped. I could breathe again. I could talk again. I ran into my boyfriend's room at the time. I remember saying to him, I either had a very vivid dream or I just saw a ghost. He had also had his own apparition that he experienced at a different time and a different location, and he went, oh, okay. Well, let's go to bed. I remember going to bed that night and not believing it. The next morning, I woke up and I told my family. I was very vague about it. They joked about it and went, oh, maybe it's haunted. And I was like, okay, maybe, and we moved on with our day. They didn't take me seriously at all. Even though my grandfather had had experiences in his past, as well as my grandmother. She even captured an apparition in Fredericksburg with her camera sitting in a pew. My family is relatively sensitive, but we have never dabbled with anything that was dark, deliberately messing with us in any way. We went out. Learned all about the pirates and tops and everything. That night, we as a family were playing Monopoly. The kitchen table was right next to my bedroom door. It was just fine. We had lots of laughs. And my grandmother said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to bed." And my boyfriend was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go to bed. It's just my grandfather and I in the kitchen." Cleaning up the board. He goes to my door. He stops and he stares. He looks back at me and says, "You're right. The pressure changes at night." And I went, "Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend the night there. I'm not going to sleep in that room. Never again." He went, "I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you." And I spent the night within my boyfriend's room. Who had a twin bed? It wasn't an ideal situation. The next morning I wake up, and I hear my grandmother from the top of the stairs say in almost a joking way, "Baka saw the ghost." And Baka is the name that I call my grandfather. I went, "What?" She was joking. But my grandfather, he was really shaken. He comes downstairs. He says at about 3 a.m, he was woken up by being pressed into the bed. This is a detail that I did not tell him. When he woke up, he kept his eyes closed and he turned over to my grandmother, who was to his right. He said annoyingly, "Pat, why? Why are you waking me up? She's still kind of asleep." "Doug, I'm not doing that." In that moment, he hears his wife's voice next to him. He opens his eyes. He sees a tall, black, shadowy figure in a top hat, sitting in the chair at the foot of the bed. He said to her then, "Who is sitting in that chair?" When she woke up, he turned to her. It was gone. I decided to sleep in the same room as my grandmother. I remember having the light on the whole time and having this unmistakable pressure surrounding me, constantly like chatter in my head, static around me. The energy was off, and my eyes were fixated on the foot of the bed. The moment that 3 a.m. passed, I turned over, looked at the clock, and I think it was 3:05, 3:10. Suddenly, I was able to fall asleep. We told the owners of this house what had happened. They said, "Oh, you've never had any ghost encounters before." So I put it to bed, whatever that was. That was very much real. It became my ghost story. During COVID, I was flipping through some streaming service. There was some documentary style on sleep paralysis. They showed a picture of a sleep paralysis demon called the Old Hag. It was an artistic rendering, I think done over 100 years ago, and I froze. It's exactly what I had seen that night. There are other renderings of the Old Hag. That didn't quite fit the bill, but this one did. The sunken black eyes, the open mouth, the vampiric teeth, the floating gray hair, and the pressing on the chest, and it sent shivers up and down my spine. I found out that there are predominantly 2 sleep paralysis demons that have been known throughout centuries, throughout millennia, and across the world. Everybody's stories are exactly the same. It is pressing into the bed, stolen breath, something staring at you. The Old Hag sits on your chest, and the other one is called the Shadow Man. Shadow Man stands at the foot of your bed. He's oftentimes seen wearing a top hat. Putting this together, I realized I had seen the Old Hag, and the following night, my grandfather had seen the Shadow Man. We had no previous experience or knowledge of this. We were just 2 people that have had paranormal experiences before. Maybe these demons latched onto us that night because we were open. I have made certain that I am not as vulnerable as I was. That night, I found out that some people have had recurring visits from these demons, and it often happens because they are so vulnerable. I don't know if it was just age, but I have been way more receptive to the paranormal. I can see things, apparitions, and Elisa's story continues right after this. Stay with us. My ex-partner I was living with a couple of years ago, he was a big skeptic when I told him this. He would shrug it off. One night, I was really trying to understand, what is this? Is this something that I have now? What is this? I was woken up by him screaming in bed, shrieking. I turn over, I see him. He pushed himself up on the bed, trying to get away from something. He was staring at the door. He told me I saw a tall, black, shadowy figure standing in the doorway with a hat on. I don't know if he experienced the shadow man at that one point, but ever since then, he's only had brief experiences with hearing his grandfather, his grandmother. One time he saw his grandfather in a car door, but he's really had nothing significant since then. There was an apparition attached to an old, vintage vanity of mine that I've had for years. It was an elderly woman. This person was in my house at the same time. We looked up and he went, "It's a woman. Older woman, tall." I went, "White hair, Victorian." He went, "Yes. She's good, though she's just lost. I have actually been able to help a friend who lost her husband, unfortunately, to suicide. This was completely unintentional. I was chatting with her at a pool party. She started opening up to me, and suddenly her past husband was there. I was able to tell her things about him that she had not told me. I knew where he was touching her and how he was touching her. She started breaking down and crying. I don't know if that experience with that demon changed something in me that made me more open. But you bet I sage my house every day. I don't ever sleep on my back anymore. I just don't want to recreate that night. But it does seem that once these sleep demons enter your life, you become a little bit more attuned to the paranormal, I guess. Just had a lot of significant encounters since then. I used to live by an old iron mill, and I watched my dog get spooked by something, and at the same time I felt that pressure. The other night, I watched my other dog alert to the corner of a room where we have kind of an altar for my deceased dog that just passed. I watched him stare in that corner and alert to it, try to smell the air, and once again, I felt that pressure, but it was positive. When it passed over me, I felt a wind on my face. I just have a lot of these experiences nowadays, that it seems kind of normal. That veil has been thinned in a way. Still to this day, I haven't had any more encounters with her. I don't want to have any more encounters with her. Maybe I wasn't the right kind of energy she wanted to feed off of. People will chalk it up to, "Oh, you were sleeping," and if you do some research on it, people don't actually know what sleep paralysis is. They don't understand why it happens. If someone has experienced sleep paralysis before, they know that it's completely different than being manipulated and seeing a demon. That was very different. I don't know if I can find that picture, but if you Google old hag demon, somebody put this depiction in a nurse's outfit. It's like blue-purple colored is the hue of the painting, just the way that her mouth is open and her hair is standing on end, and how she's touching whomever she's sitting on. It's very similar to what I experienced. I don't know the origin. We have all of our theories on what demons could be. My personal theory is that demons are spirits that are stuck, that have been stuck for so many years. They become poltergeist and become demons. That's just my personal theory, whoever the old hag and the shadow man are. They are ancient. They are millennia old. If you do some digging, you can find that there are encounters that people have had that are centuries old all across the globe. For me, that just validates it even further. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? Let me know in the comments or through Instagram. I'll leave my contact information in the description of this episode. I'm on there as Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. And if you have a story that you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Communications subscribers, I'll talk to you in the next episode. And thank you, everyone that has tried Scary Plus over on Scary Plus. I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Ghost in the Nightgown, A Mother's Paranormal. My name is Edwin, and here is Fatima's true scary story. I always felt and sensed and saw things that not a lot of people would see. I came to understand later in life that it actually is something that runs in my family. I have a very religious family. Both sides are Islamic, so in the Islamic faith, there's a thing about jinn. And my mother would always chalk it up to the devil, or the darkness just manifesting into something that is playing tricks on you. So as a child, I would sense things. I often felt dismissed, and I think that at some point, I just stopped seeing things. But my real story begins when I was pregnant with my daughter in 2007. Everything just amplified. All of my senses just increased in a way that was overwhelming. I could feel energies around me. I could feel eyes on me at nighttime. I never really talked about it. My husband had no idea at the time, and it was something that I wasn't really familiar with. And then we fast forward a bit, and my baby is born. I brought her home, and for like a good month, things were quiet. And then all of a sudden, I started seeing shadows. And I started seeing orbs out of my peripheral vision. I'm extremely sleep deprived. I'm waking up every hour and a half to 2 hours to feed my baby. And needless to say, petrified to go to sleep. On one specific afternoon, I decided to take a nap with my daughter at the same time because of these, like, weird feelings I had. I didn't love leaving her in her nursery, so I kept her in the co-sleeper. That was attached to the side of my bed. I fell asleep with her. I woke up and got up to go to the restroom and walked to my bedroom door. Right there, standing in the bedroom door, is a little girl. I would say she's about 7 years old. She had a headband on. She had these little baby doll shoes. The minute I saw her, I lost my mind, and I rushed over towards the bed so I could be next to my daughter. When I looked at my bed, I was still laying in it. And then the minute I got that realization, it was like I whoosh back into my body. I get up out of the bed and walk towards the door, and I don't see her there. And I feel obviously a sense of relief. I could chalk this up to sleep deprivation, nightmare, whatever, and I walk through my door. And the minute I walk through the door, all of my hairs, like on the back of my neck, my scalp, my whole body, he's in full-blown goosebumps. Whoever that was is here. I can feel her. I came to realize later on that that was astral projection. So I guess I was seeing this child on the astral plane, but at the time I had no idea what that meant. My family is very religiously complex, and it was complicated. I didn't even know really who to pray to. One night, I did put her in her crib in her room, and we had the monitor. But they're not the video monitors, it's the audio only. So that night, I went to bed with no real issue. All of a sudden, I started to feel a ruffling at my feet, and I was still partially asleep, but aware that it was happening. It felt like a fur ball, almost like I had a pet. But I did not have a pet at the time, just running through my feet. I started to come out of sleep. On the voice monitor, I hear an inaudible female child speaking from my daughter's room. Of course. I spring out of bed at that moment, and I'm like, crap. She's here. And I run into my daughter's room. And as I'm running to her room, my daughter starts screaming. So it prompted me to think that she definitely sensed that girl was there. I go in her room, I take her out of her crib. It's probably about 2:30 in the morning at this point. And I'm like, breathe in, breathe out, everything is fine. You know, justifying it away like it's a nightmare. You're tired. You've been through a lot. Just like sit in the rocking chair. And I'm rocking her, and I'm feeding her. And I'm just like starting to calm myself down a little bit. And then I see it's like a dirty, blue-colored, circular orb at the other side of the room. In my mind, so I'm not seeing this with my eyes, I'm seeing the image of that child. All of the hair stand up in my body, and I start to feel like a cold draft just starting to come over me. So, I take my baby out of the room and I go in the bedroom. It was like, that's it. I'm not putting her in that room, and we fall asleep. I still struggle when I speak about this story because it freaks me out so much. I kept it in for a while, and those are the 2 times I actually saw her. But I sensed her often, and it just got to a point where I was like, I need to talk to someone about this, and hopeful that they won't think I'm not. So the choice of people was a friend of mine that I used to work with. I called her and blubbered to her just all of my experiences, and dusting it with like, I know you think I'm crazy, but this is what's happening. And she told me that she knew of a medium. That was actually someone that she worked with at one point in time. So she gave me her number, and I didn't even skip a beat. I called her right away and asked if we could meet. We met at a local place near my apartment where I lived, and she kind of asked me not to give her details because she wanted to have a clean reading. When she got there, she kind of knew I was in a state of distress. She finally came to the apartment with me shortly after, and she entered through everywhere. In the minute she got to my room, she told me, I sense a little girl here, and she has been with you for a very long time, and she feels like she's got a bit of envy because you have this child that you're focusing all of your attention on. My entire life, I never recalled ever seeing a little girl, but I always felt like even when I was alone, that I was actually not alone. She did a lot of sage. She did some banishing type things, like brought in the white light and, demanded that the child leave. And after that, it started to calm down, like I didn't really feel her presence anymore. But it was definitely the entryway into other visitations. The entity of a little girl was only the start. Fatima is about to meet what she refers to as the woman. Her story continues stay with us. We've rented since we had our children, and I'm currently living in the 4th place that we've rented. The one common theme is this woman. I was sleeping, and I started to come out of a state of sleep. I saw this woman standing at the foot of my bed, She was wearing a white nightgown, but her hair for me was completely covering her face, so I couldn't see her face. I tried to move, tried to scream, and I couldn't, and I came to realize later, this was sleep paralysis. She was standing there. She feels threatening. Desperate, she feels. Sinister. And she's not a comfortable energy to be around. The next morning, I wake up finally. I guess I went to sleep, and I go into the kitchen. And I'm starting to make breakfast. And my 7-year-old daughter comes downstairs, and she proceeds to tell me that she was just upstairs, and she saw a woman with the same description, walking down the hallway. To get that overall feeling, when your child confirms that, what actually happened to you was, something is jarring. We're in the same house, I'm having another. Well, it's a nightmare first. And I end up in a location in dreamland, where it's a house. She just pops up in my dream. I immediately sense that I'm in her domain, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable, and I want to leave. I'm trying to run, trying to scream. I can't do any of those things. So my eyes start to open when I woke up from this dream. She was at the foot of my bed, and I couldn't move for a good couple of seconds. Wake up the next morning after sleeping after that, and my second child is in the kitchen with me again, and I'm getting food ready. Almost simultaneously to me, feeling goosebumps on the back of my neck. My daughter, who is 3, 'cause it's my youngest. She goes a woman, and she describes her with a white dress and long, black hair just ran behind you. Again, that feeling overwhelms me. I'm in my bed. I'm completely frozen on my bed. And she's at the foot of my bed. And this time she climbs up the bed, like from my feet all the way up in, like a spider, like movement, and then comes on my chest and starts inhaling. The thing that wakes me is my daughter, screaming from her bed, breaks me out of the sleep paralysis. I run into her room, and she proceeds to tell me through tears and shaking that she just had a terrible dream about me, and a woman on top of me sucking my breath. This happened to me 2 weeks ago. I would say I believe it was the same woman, but she appeared in a very different way. I was having sleep paralysis. My door was open. It's dark, mind you. There's no lights. I could see a darker darkness. I can't describe it. It's like blacker than the darkness, right outside of my doorway in the hallway. So, not in my room, but right outside. She was crouched down, frog-like, with her head sort of tilted to the left. Jesus, I saw her. I lost my mind and my body. And then, as I was pulling myself out of the sleep paralysis, there was this sudden, whispering into my right ear. It didn't sound like just one person. It sounded like 7 or 8 different sounds in my ear, and I just woke up. I fully believed that that was the same person or entity. But she just didn't appear to me in the way she normally does. My daughter was sick. We were laying in my room, in my bed, watching movies. And it was just like, nursing her to health, so to speak. And she had to go to the bathroom. So she gets up out of the bed, and I'm still sitting in the bed. I pause the movie. She gets to my door before she gets into the hallway. She does that sound. I'm in my office now, and I can see my bed from where I'm sitting. So she was looking in my office, where I'm currently sitting, and said that she saw a woman with a white nightgown and black hair, except the difference is, this woman's eyes were glowing yellow. Inside, I'm freaking out. Outside, I'm like, everything's fine, you just go in the bathroom. and I muster up the strength and come into my office. And it is very cold in my office. And so I just come in here and I don't know where I had this strength, but I just firmly asked it to leave. And not scare my child, get out of my house. You are not welcome here. And you do not approach my child. And it was like, immediately felt this sense of lightness in the room. It just kind of dissipated. But what I want to mention is, my dog was upstairs when this happened, and my dog was growling right before I said that. And now my dog will not come upstairs on her own. And this was months ago if she comes upstairs. I have to carry her up here. She won't come upstairs on her own since that day. Fast forward, I'm with my brother, taking him to a Halloween scary thing. And in the spirit of Halloween, we're talking about the paranormal. My brother is very analytical type of mind. This is not a conversation that we have frequently. I proceed to tell him the stories about this woman, and he cuts me off and says, "I've seen her." And I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And he says that my mom was away visiting in Egypt. He was living with her at the time, and he says in his peripheral vision, he sees what look like long, dark hair and a white, like nightgown charge towards him. In his peripheral vision, he looks to his left, he sees nobody there. He continues back to do what he was doing. He sees it again, the woman charging to his left. I've come to realize that he's actually had a lot of experiences also. But this was the first time that I ever knew that he had experiences like this. So now I was talking to my aunt, and she was mentioning some of her experiences in life. She started speaking about the same woman, but her theory is that it's her sister, who is my aunt who passed away from cancer in 1999. It's her spirit, but that she's not rested. She's angry, and the reason she feels that way is because her child had nightmares of my aunt, looking unlike herself, and towards the end of her life, she did not have any hair, but she did not have black hair in her life. It was like dark brown, but she always wore a really long white nightgown because it was comfortable for her in her end days. But my cousin had a nightmare about her. She grabbed his arm, and when he woke up, there was like bruising on his arm from her. My aunt was a very strong, beautiful, successful woman, and she did a lot in her life. She did a lot of good in her life. But I think that she had such a zest for life that I think she was angry that her life was essentially being taken from her, from cancer. She has a house in Virginia. It's still there, my family members that do go. They do hear screaming in the night. They feel her presence. There was a specific instance where a lot of family would come from Egypt and stay at this house together. My aunt was there, my mom was there, and my other aunt, that's deceased. Her grandchildren were there, and they were all sleeping. My aunt heard screaming in the middle of the night, like a moaning screaming. They all ended up in the hallway saying, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" I cannot step foot into that house ever again. Share your story with our community by going to truescarystory.com. Free versions of this show are available on Scary Plus, and you can try it out for free. Links to this and to get in touch with me are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Bad Feeling. It was on July of 1987. I lived in the Pacific Northwest. It was during the summer. So it's really hot. It was July. It's really humid where I lived at the time. And it was about 12. I was on summer break alone. so I was alone in the house. They knew it was going to be really hot, so I wanted to make sure. All the doors and windows were closed because we didn't have air conditioning. My grandpa, who was in the hospital in California at that time, but they said he was pretty stable. My Nana, who's his wife, my grandmother, she was at home. She wasn't going to visit in the hospital that day. My uncle was over taking care of her. It was in the morning too, but it was already starting to get warm out. I started doing my chores, the dishes, when then I started vacuuming. And then I felt this really sharp tap, like someone poking on my back. I felt it a few times, and I was home alone in the house. I don't have any siblings. I turned around, and there was no one there. There was no one else in the house. The living room got really cold. All of a sudden, I had a really bad feeling. So I turned off the vacuum, and then I went. I just went outside for a little bit to warm up, and I did not vacuum the rest of the day. The run at same time in California is around 10:30. My Nana got a really bad feeling, and she went straight back to the hospital. She told me that when she got there. She took my grandfather's hands, and he opened his eyes. And then he passed away. It happened at the same time that I got tapped on the shoulder, because I remember them telling me it was around 11. I looked at the clock at our house, and it was 11 too. My mom got home, and she said, "I have to tell you something." And she was pretty sad, but I already knew. I don't know how, but I just knew what she was going to tell me. I didn't vacuum for a long time after that. I'm in my 40s now, and even when I'm vacuuming in my house by myself, I leave a door open even if it's snowing here. I'm so still terrified. Like 30 years later that this is going to happen again. My Nana said that she felt for the next year or so that, and my grandfather would send her messages, but no one in my family believed her, because I just thought, she's just the grieving widow and making stuff up. But then in this time, it's a couple years later in like 1989, my Nana was going to go visit my great aunt, who was in San Francisco. She was getting in the car, and she said, my grandpa spoke to her and told her not to go. She got out of the car and she called my great aunt. And they said, they calculated that the time it would have happened, she would have been on the bridge. And the time it collapsed, I don't know if you ever knew that, about the Bay Bridge collapsing. It was just toppled down onto another layer of the bridge, and hundreds of people died. It's really tragic. As with most of our calls go, I asked Tara if she had any more experiences, and she thought of one more. Here it is. My friend's friends got in 7th grade. It was summer. Got like a Ouija board, which my mom always told me, do not mess with those. Do not bring it in my house. I wasn't going to bring it in the house, but I went over to a friend of a friend's house. There's this girl, and she was just a little off. There was just something weird about her. But my best friend was with me, and it was daytime. I figured it would be okay. So we went over to her house, and we started playing with it. She started asking it questions. What's your name? Are you from here? Are you a bad spirit? And it said yes. So I was done at that point. I was like, okay, we should stop fighting like this. But she wanted to keep going, which was a little unnerving. So then she just kept asking it questions. Then my other friend was like, okay, we just need to stop this now, because we're inviting something bad into the house. We stopped, and we said goodbye. And then all the magnets on her fridge flew off the fridge to the other side of the house. I've never seen anything like. It was terrifying, and the house got really cold. We got up and pretty much ran out of the house, and I never played with her again. I think she disappeared a couple years later. She just stopped coming to school, but yeah, just a really bad vibe for her. Don't leave just yet, since today's stories are short. I am publishing 3 in total. Have you listened to them yet? They're up and available now as separate episodes. Also remember, you can share your own story with me over on True, scarystory.com, for your chance to have it featured. On an upcoming episode to listen ad-free, try out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. Completely free for 14 days, and then $4.99 a month, and you can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story Chased by Spirits, my family's paranormal encounter. I grew up in this really tiny town called Cleveland, Utah. The house was known as the very first post office in this really small town when Utah was founded. It was so old that when we did some renovations on the house, we would cut into it and see that it was logs on the inside. That's how old it was. It was an old log post office. My mom and dad decided to create a bedroom in the attic space upstairs. They cut a hole in the ceiling and built these really rickety, steep kind of stairs that went up into this little attic space. The top right corner of the room would be where the stairs would come up. Right at the top of those stairs, in the bottom right corner, was my bed, up against the wall. Right in that corner, right there across the room. In the bottom left corner would be my sister's bed, and then in the top left corner was my brother's bed. I used to see this really dark shadow every night. I would wake up in the middle of the night. Somebody was in the room with me, watching me. I would open my eyes, and there would be this dark shadow standing over by my brother's bed. Staring down at him, it was the shape of a man, but it was just a really dark shadow that would stand there. It would move from my brother's bed, and it would just float across the room, standing over the top of my sister's bed, watching her. If I felt myself waking up, I would keep my eyes closed and wait for my brother to move, or wait for my sister to move, and then I would open my eyes. Then he would be standing right by me, staring down at me, watching me sleep. I was so scared I would take all of my stuffed animals, put them all the way around me, and then I'd take the biggest stuffed animal that I had, and I'd put it right over the top of me and tuck it in to make it look like. The stuffed animal is the one sleeping in the bed. I think around in my teenage years, we moved out of that house, and I didn't have any other experiences growing up until later in life when I met my husband. We had all of our kids at that time, and he was stationed in the Air Force, and he got deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan. He got deployed to Korea for a year. One of the funny things about me and my husband, we were really into the TV show Ghost Hunters. There was this one episode where they went to the Stanley Hotel. It's the actual hotel that Stephen King himself was staying in when he had those experiences. That scared him so much that he wrote the book, The Shining. This hotel is over 100 years old in Estes Park, Colorado. It's gorgeous. On this episode, they decide that they're going to split up into these separate rooms in the hotel that are known for the most paranormal activity. In the hotel, one of them is on the 4th floor, room 412. Back to me and my husband. My husband is deployed to Iraq. I want to surprise him with something. Just pretty cool for him coming home. He's been gone for 6 months. I decided he was going to book us a stay at the Stanley Hotel so that we can go investigate ghosts. I decided to book that exact room 412. We drive to the Stanley, and you walk into this hotel, and there's this big staircase. It goes up the center, and then it splits off to the right and the left, on both sides, and you can go up to the other rooms. Next to the staircase, it has this really awesome, super old elevator that is, one of those metal elevators that you have to close the gate on. Old, rickety, and really loud. We get our key for the room, so we get in the elevator and we go upstairs. Step off the elevator, and the room that is haunted is right next to that elevator. We get in the room and go check out the closet. This closet is 100 years old, full hard wood. It's got one of those really old doorknobs on it that are really hard to turn. It's super heavy. On the back side of the closet is that elevator. We check that out. We check the room out. It was really pretty. It had a really old bathroom in it, the really super old Victorian sink with on the inside. We decided to go get some dinner and walk around the hotel for the rest of the evening until bedtime. So nothing happened to us that night. When we were walking around checking out the hotel, and we took the tour. The tour guide was this really cool, old guy that had actually done the tour for ghost hunters. When they came, he was their tour guide. We noticed that on our tour. The guy goes right up to the room we're staying in, stood outside of the door, and sit there and tell the stories about what happens in there, how people have lost things. Me and my husband are just sitting there thinking, yeah, we're staying in this room tonight. We even told the people that were on the tour with us. We're like, yeah, this is our room. We're going to stay in there. You guys want to look in there? And they were all pretty excited to go in and check out the room. And we ended the tour and went to eat dinner. And then we went back up to the room. And it was time for bed. We decided that we were going to go and take a shower. Together, we're in the bathroom, talking about how nothing's happened to us. It doesn't seem very creepy. There was 3 bulbs in this one light fixture above the bathroom sink. As soon as we were talking about this happening, the light bulbs all shattered. We got out of the shower and called downstairs. I told the lady at the desk what had happened. She said that they were going to send somebody up to come and take care of it. Things like that happen all the time in that room. I just don't know what could have caused that. They came up, they cleaned it up, they left the room, and me and my husband get into bed. And we're laying there, and I'm trying to go to sleep. This bed is facing the closet. So if you're sitting up in bed, you're looking right at the closet. I get this really dark, heavy feeling. There is something in this room. I open my eyes. I look up. Right above the bed is a fan. A ceiling fan, and right next to the ceiling fan, there is this woman floating there. She had a really long, dark hair. I'm looking at her. I start grabbing my husband's arm, shaking him, and I'm like, honey, do you see her? She's right there. And I'm hyperventilating. He wakes up, sits right up, and he's like, where? Where? And I'm like, she's right there in front of us. At that point, she starts moving towards me. And I take a breath and I'm like, hi. She stops, tips her head sideways. We laid down to go back to sleep, and I could not go to sleep. The morning after, we went downstairs to go tell the people that I had an experience. There's a tour guide there. And I tell her what had happened to me last night. And she kind of just, yeah, that happens all the time. It seemed like she didn't believe me, didn't take me seriously. We decided we were going to go look around the town and check out the hotel more. It's pretty big. It's got a few outbuildings too. We spent the day just being tourists. We get back to the hotel. My husband decides what he's gonna do. He grabs this little L, no smoking sign that is sitting on top of the dresser, and he's gonna put it right in front of the closet door. Slide it right under it just in case something happens. We go to sleep, and nothing else happens that night. The next morning, the closet door is closed, but the little LS sign was out in the middle of the floor. I'm feeling really uneasy about staying in this hotel and room because we had one more night there. I call my mom. I'm bawling. I don't want to stay here. And my husband's being a sweetheart, sitting there telling me it's gonna be okay. We just got one more night. Let's just stay here. And I said, okay, we'll just stay because it was paid for that night. Actually, nothing happened to us. We just woke up and left to go back home. I would absolutely stay at the Stanley Hotel again. The hotel was beautiful. The food was amazing. From their little old-fashioned restaurant. And the rooms were really comfortable. Really scary, but really comfortable. I would not stay on the 4th floor again. Not at all, not in any of the rooms on the 4th floor. Forget it. Throughout our marriage, we have had quite a few paranormal, inexplicable things that have happened. After we went and stayed at the Stanley Hotel, we had moved out of the house that we were staying. At the time, we moved on to base housing at Hill Air Force Base. Cabinet doors would open and close. You would hear whispers or voices throughout the house. When I was in my room laying on the bed, I would be reading, and right above the book, I would see this little boy's head just quickly dash past the bottom of the bed. One other instance. Me and my husband were laying in our bed watching TV. All of a sudden, all of the stuff that was in there, our bathroom, fell off of the shelves into the bathtub. Another time that I was laying in bed, all of a sudden, I felt these little steps stepping next to me, from my feet all the way up to my head. And I turned and I looked, and there was nothing there. We decided that we wanted to name this little ghost. And I'm like, how about we name him Billy? At that exact same time, my husband said that in his head popped the name Billy. After this house, we had moved off a base. It was Halloween, and we felt this ghost presence had followed us. Because same thing started happening in this other house. I took my kids to go see my mom for Halloween. While we were there, I was on the phone talking to my husband, and all of a sudden he says, there was a little boy that just ran across the floor, down the bed, out of the corner of my eye. The kid ran across the room. We're sitting there talking about it, and then all of a sudden you hear in the living room the sound of one of my Halloween decorations go off. This Halloween decoration, it was broken. The motion active part of it was busted, and it was an old gravestone that would crack open and scream at you. The only way for it to go off was for somebody to push it. We moved to Montana. We had a bunch of things happen in that house. My children saw these things. My son Lincoln, he is very sensitive. A couple of days ago, I was in my room. My son's girlfriend. I was going to show her something on my phone. I was walking down my hallway, passing the kitchen, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my son standing in the kitchen. In front of the sink, his back was to me. I thought, okay, I'm gonna go show Lincoln first. When I turned to look into the kitchen, he's not there. He is not there. There is nobody there. He comes walking in through the family room. In the back door, I explained to him, this ghost, or mimic, or whatever this was, looked just like him. I have no idea what that was. But it scared the crap out of me. That's the first time something's happened to me, personally in this house. I'm hoping nothing else happens here. I'm almost over the whole ghost thing. Haha, balding. We have had other situations where we would be sitting out on the porch. We live up in Willow, Alaska. It's a really tiny town in the middle of the forest. We have neighbors that aren't very close to us. We would be sitting out on the porch, and you would hear strange howls, moans, and growls over in that forest. Over there, across the lake, we're avid hunters. We know what it sounds like when a moose is in heat. Just doesn't sound anything like that. Me and my son and his friends, we always talk about shapeshifters up here all the time. Skinwalkers is a big deal in Alaska. A skinwalker can take certain forms of people or things. I don't know if it could have possibly been something like that. I can't tell you. I really have no idea what it could possibly have been. I don't know if it's the places that we've lived in, or if it's because my side of the family, is so sensitive to ghosts, or if it's Lincoln himself. If he attracts these things coming to us everywhere that we've been, in all of the houses that we've lived in. I haven't really been very scared, even though we've had these experiences happen to us. Every time I'm thinking that we're in a new place, it's going to be great. There's nothing going to happen. Then something happens. You can share your story with us over at True Scary Storycom, and to listen without ads and support the show at the same time. Visit scaryplus.com. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you soon. Everyone.